Hey everybody, I'm the Ranting Monkey, and today we are going to talk about the utter bullshit that is the pay gap. In a recent discussion on one of my other videos, I was told that I don't care about children or mothers, and that I just don't understand the wage gap because of my man brain. Now, this video should not have to be made. The wage gap has been debunked so many times that this should not be necessary, but that discussion proved to me some people still don't get it, so I'm going to tackle it myself. The wage gap, sometimes called the pay gap, tells us that for every dollar a man makes, a woman only makes between 52 and 81 cents. The actual discrepancy between a man and a woman's pay varies wildly, depending on how shrill the feminist screeching about it happens to be. But what that gap may be is irrelevant because the wage gap isn't a wage gap at all. It's an earnings gap. The studies that gave us the wage gap looked at lifetime earnings of all men and all women, and they just subtracted the difference. They didn't account for things like career fields. They didn't account for men working more overtime on average, and they didn't account for women leaving the labor force at a younger age than men do. More recent studies, which only show a 7% wage gap, tried to account for these variables, but the study was still very flawed. They compared like jobs and like education. For instance, they would look at accountants and compare male accountants to female accountants. They still didn't account for variables like where somebody works, what city these people worked in. An accountant working for a Fortune 500 company based in New York City is going to earn more money than one working for H&R Block in bumfuck Iowa. Now, I think the problem here is that men are involved in this equation, and for feminists that brings on hatred, and what little logic they do possess is thrown right out the window. So for this discussion, we are going to take men out of the scenario completely. We are just going to look at two different women, Kristi and Mary. Kristi and Mary are hired by the same company on the same day. They have identical work experience, they have identical education, and they're both hired in at $10 an hour. The company offers 10 hours of overtime every week. Kristi only works 40 hours a week, so she can spend as much time as possible bitching on YouTube about how the patriarchy is holding her back. Plus, there are men who keep trying to open a men's health center in her area, and she has to have time to protest that. Her gross pay is $400 a week, and she makes $20,800 a year. Over the course of a 20-year career, she will make $416,000. Mary takes advantage of the overtime and brings in $550 a week, earning $28,600 a year. Over a 20-year career, she earns $572,000. As we can clearly see, Mary's willingness to work is oppressing Kristi. She's going to earn $156,000 more over her career, and that's just not fair. In this scenario, all of the beginning factors are the same. Kristi and Mary are hired by the same company with the same education and work experience, and both of them are hired at $10 an hour. There's no overtime in this one. Each of them only works 40 hours a week. Their compensation is identical until Kristi's favorite cat gets hit by a car in a desperate attempt to escape Kristi's affection. Kristi heads to the local sperm bank for a vaginal kitty sickle to fill the void left by Mr. Whiskerson's untimely death. She makes the decision to become a full-time mom and leaves the company. She worked for 10 years and made a total of $208,000. Mary stays with the same company for 20 years and makes $416,000 over that time. Once again, we see Kristi being oppressed. Over their career, Mary made twice as much as Kristi did. Sure, she worked twice as long, but that is not what's important. What's important is that she made more. In our final example, Kristi goes to college and gets a PhD in women's studies, qualifying her for a rewarding career in the food service industry where she makes $10 an hour. Mary went to college and got a bachelor's degree in computer engineering and lands a job making $30 an hour. In the worst example of discrimination yet, Mary is going to make $832,000 more over her career than Kristi will, despite having a lesser college degree. Each of these examples shows why the pay gap is such shit. Generally, men work more overtime. Men have longer careers, and they work in higher-paying fields. Women are not barred from any of this. In each of these scenarios, feminists would claim obvious discrimination, but if you look at it, Kristi made less because of the decision she made. It had nothing to do with her having a vagina. She worked less hours. She left the workforce to become a mom. She got a degree that only qualified her to bitch about non-existent sexism like mansplaining and catcalling. Mary made more because she worked more and because she went into a higher-paying field. There was no discrimination, no pay gap. There is an earnings gap, but it is because of the choices these women made. There is nothing stopping women from earning as much as men. If a woman wants to forgo children, if she wants to go into science instead of fucking women's studies, You can open the same doors that men do. This earning gap comes because of choices women make, not because men are holding them back. The invisible hand of the patriarchy isn't holding you down. I hope these examples, with men completely removed from the equation, help to clear things up. That's going to do it for this one. I am the Ranting Monkey. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with all your friends, and I will see you next time.